here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let us start the program with invocation.
मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृदयेन्द्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृदयेन्द्रीं आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेश क्रममाक्रमणं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृदयेन्द्रीं जननी पृथ्वी कामदुआस्ते जननी पृथ्वी कामदुआस्ते जनको देवः सकलदयाळु जनको देवः सकलदयाळु दाम्यत दत्त दयत्वं जनत दाम्यत दत्त दयत्वं जनत श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां.
Thank you, Ramya. May I now request the power behind this power talk, Dr. S.Gurumurthy, Dean Planning Development, to render the welcome address and introduce the chief guest.
Distinguished speaker for the Daksh PowerTalk, Shri S.Gurumurthy, my faculty colleagues, student friends, and other special invitees, a very good evening to all of you. Before I deliver the usual welcome address whenever Mr. S.Gurumurthy is here, I would first like to thank him, not that I'm proposing the vote of thanks, but would like to thank him on behalf of the audience here. You all listened to a very powerful lecture, a thought-provoking lecture by Mr. Ajit Doval before lunch. And it was Mr. S.Gurumurthy who requested on behalf of SASTRA University, Mr. Ajit Doval, to come to this institution. And not stopping when we were just discussing just before he left, Mr. Gurumurthy also made this remark that he invites people like Mr. Ajit Doval to only institutions of this type, of very high order. And I'm extremely happy to thank you, sir, on behalf of everybody for placing the confidence in our institution. And I must also say that every time that he comes to Shastra, he leaves amidst us a very profound thought that manifests in the last 5-6 years that we have seen a lot of interventions that we have made, especially the field of legal anthropology, the life and message of Swami Vivekananda, course on Indian womanhood. Now, these are all the initiatives that we have taken thanks to the very profound thoughts that Mr. Gurumurthy has left behind the campus as and when he visits this university, which I must say has become a regular annual feature and will also become a more frequent visits of Gurumurthy is in the offing when he takes bigger responsibilities that I am going to request him to. Now, I've always also had the pleasure of introducing Mr. S. Gurumurthy, and whenever I introduce him every year, I present to the audience a dimension of the person. And I always say that, this year it is a challenge for me because I'm just trying to discover certain new dimensions every year that he visits. And you will all recall that I have already introduced him as a chartered accountant, I have introduced him as an economist, I have introduced him as a journalist, I have introduced him as a corporate advisor, I have introduced him as an anthropologist, I have introduced him as a sociologist, I have introduced him as a lawyer. I have done all sorts of introductions, but today, and it also includes an introduction in the form that he is also an Indologist, and I have done all sorts of introductions. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to introduce Mr. S.Gurumurthy as a theologist. And that is why the subject that we have chosen today is a subject that borders around the very, very abstract concept of theology, which many people think it's a very difficult subject to understand, and also feel that it is a subject that cannot be entertained as a discourse or a topic for a debate or a discussion in university campuses like this. But we need people like Mr. S.Gurumurthy. Because there are very few people who can handle this very delicate subject of theology in the very most layman's language and put it in a manner that it can be best understood. Now, the reason that I chose this topic is because I saw a 3-minute video of Mr. S.Gurumurthy addressing the India Today conclave in 2009. The subject of that panel discussion was, does terror have a religion? And unfortunately, it was a 30-minute talk, but the video in the website stops with just 4 minutes. And every time I meet him, I ask him for a copy of the video. And then it struck me. Now, why is that I need to ask a copy of the video from him? We all remember 2 years back when he came here, he delivered the lecture on the world after Marx and market. In fact, that was a repeat feature of a lecture that he delivered probably 20 years back at the Center for Policy Studies. And I invited him to again deliver the same lecture at SASTRA, which he did. And so I told him, this time when you come to the university, I would like you to address on this topic. And I just changed the topic because India Today can afford to have a topic like that. Does terror have a religion? And if I do that, people will say, is it a secular topic or what? So I didn't want to get into that controversy. I said, peace through religious harmony, knowing pretty well that he is going to border on those very specific issues that he spoke in the India Today conclave in 2009. Because there is no doubt in anybody's mind that definitely there is a theological dimension to the terrorist activities happening around the world. And we need to discuss, deliberate, and see what is the best way forward. You see, for terrorists, in his own words, terror is an advertisement. And Mr. Ajit Doval very rightly said this morning, it is not the victims of terror. It is more than that, that it envelops those people who are terrorized by that activity, and that is the bigger impact of terrorism. And that is the advertisement. The act of terror is an advertisement of the thought process of terrorism. And it could be sponsored by some lone wolves. It could be sponsored by clandestine cells, fundamentalist groups, revolutionaries, insurgents, and also in some cases the government itself, as we see in some theocratic societies. But the cost of that is huge. The sponsorship of that kind of an act is so huge. And this morning again, Mr. Doval said it involves a lot of finance. You need to recruit a lot of people. But on the other hand, the advertisement for peacemakers is the possibility of seeing the society as a safe place to live. And this also is a costly affair, but it doesn't involve so much of finance or recruiting manpower. It just needs an aggregation of thought processes, thoughts of leaders who represent significant theologies of the world. And you see the religion, because of the common theological denominator that it has, unifies with the perspective that every religion has a human value to life. And that, in my view, is the theological common denominator that unifies all religions. It might sound utopian that you see the topic peace through religious harmony. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. But it depends on who manages, who leads this dialogue. And I have no doubt that if at all there is a religion or a religious head who can handle and take the lead, then we have it very much in our country. The reason that I'm saying is that as a religion, Hinduism has the bandwidth to, accommodate a very diverse set of beliefs. Even an atheist can be an Hindu. So we have that bandwidth that can accommodate very diverse set of views. And I'm sure there are other theologies that can also do this. But then we need to make an attempt and start an honest effort in this direction to see whether we can create a unifying force that can bring the theological thought process together and convey a message to the world that yes, peace is possible through religious harmony. And today, that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I have chosen Mr. S. Gurumurthy to be the right person, and I am sure that he will definitely enlighten the audience here on how and why he thinks peace is possible through religious harmony. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome Mr. S. Gurumurthy.
My friend and the Honorable Vice Chancellor of this institution, Mr. Sethuraman, my friends and dignitaries on the dais, faculty members and students. When I was asked to speak about the concept whether terror has a religion, that is, whether terror can be or has the potential to be motivated by religion. It is a very sensitive topic because there were other theological experts who were expounding the other viewpoint. And it was moderated by one of the best journalists in India, Mr. M.J. Akbar, who is also my friend. So I said this can be such a sensitive topic that unless your intellectual standards are raised to the level of wisdom and does not descend to very mean levels of emotion and sentiment, it can create chaos. So I said, India has set many standards in the past. And one of the greatest standards that was set for debate was in the life of Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara had a debate with Mandana Mishra. Mandana Mishra was a married man and Adi Shankara was a sannyasi. And in the debate, the consequence was this: if Mandana Mishra lost the debate, he should become a sannyasi. If Shankara lost the debate, he should marry. And they were worried as to who would be the umpire who would declare who has lost and who hasn't lost. So I took this model as to how the debate was conducted as the highest intellectual standards to which people must raise to have a debate of this kind. So I suggested to the audience that this could become a very explosive kind of debate because the points could be very conflicting and sometimes unanswerable points could be raised by one against the other. So I said, this is the standard which was set in the debate and that is the standard I would prescribe for this audience. And I am going to prescribe the same here. So Adi Shankara chose Mandana Mishra's wife as the umpire. The person who would be worst affected. That if Mandana Mishra lost, she will lose her husband. But see how her standard was. And she relied on even higher standard of detecting who succeeds and who fails. She put a fresh garland around Shankara and Mandana Mishra and said, anyone's garland becoming less fresh and the flower losing its freshness is defeated. You know why? He will become angry, and because of the anger the body temperature will rise, and any man who is angry is a defeated man. And Mandana Mishra's garland became less fresh, and that declared him as the person defeated. I don't want to go further into it because she said, you have only won one half of the battle, I am the other half of him, you have to win against me. And the battle continues. But we are at that point as to what is the standard to decide who has won or lost a point. And that point is, anyone who becomes angry has lost the debate. So when I said the standard, everybody was cautious enough not to become angry. Because these are very sensitive subjects which call for very high intellectual empowerment of both the debater as well as the listener. So that is the standard to which all of us must rise, irrespective of our opinion. Because the capacity to listen to another person's opinion is the very hallmark of intellectualism, and that is the kind of debate that institutions like Shastra are supposed to produce. And the atmosphere that should be generated is on the basis of the standards that were set in the debate of Shankara and Mandana Mishra. You know, God is a very difficult subject. In the last 200 years in the West, the secularization movement thought that it had won the battle against God. Actually, the secularization movement was more against the church than against the God. But church and God could not be separated in the West. In fact, the church is founded on the basis that it reflects God. And so if the church is undermined, God is undermined. So God got reflected in the form of the church. And unfortunately, all the faults of the church fell on God. With the result, there was gradual deterioration in religious faith itself. There was no dividing line between church and God. With the result, the secularization movement gradually eroded the people's faith in God. Today, if you see in Europe, there is almost a sense of victory of the secular people because they feel that once and for all, the dominance of God has been done away with. It is true that secularization and secular modernization has put God on the defensive in Europe. But that doesn't mean this will happen elsewhere in the world. In a world that is so intensely linked by technology, communication, travel, people going on, immigration, can you imagine that in Paris, the Skanda Shashti is celebrated with such fervor? Almost 1 million people assemble. And it is like Tirchandur. Because so many immigrants have gone there. Whether the French people believe in God or not is irrelevant. God is there. The same is the case with the masks that are rising. And Christianity is growing powerfully elsewhere in the world. Where in the birthplace, Christianity may be undervalued, and many people even rejoice over Christianity is a dying religion in the West. But it is rising somewhere. So, God knows how to manage the world. God is not only surviving, God is dominating. And take the anti-God movement in Tamil Nadu. India is perhaps the most religious country in the world. Religious or I am going to define what is religion. Religion doesn't mean my God is superior and your God is inferior. No. All gods are superior. All gods are equal. All gods are great. All gods can lead you to greater heights. That is religion. And I will describe about religions. We speak about my God being superior, your God being inferior. What it is, I will describe later. In Tamil Nadu, God was virtually sent out of Tamil Nadu in 1967. In Kumbakonam, from where Mr. Kamakshi hails from, Rama's picture was garlanded with chapel and taken in procession. And in 1973, if I remember right, the portrait of all Hindu gods and goddesses were painted in naked form and taken in procession in Salem, wearing black shirt, shouting slogans against God. And nobody questioned, no media wrote an editorial, no politician questioned. Everybody kept quiet. But in the Tamil Nadu, wearing the very same black shirt, today 1 crore people are going to Shabarimala. God has won. And wearing red shirts in Mannargudi, in Kanyakumari, in Madurai, God was abused. But wearing the very same red shirt, people are rolling on the road to go to Melmaruttu. I have seen hundreds of people rolling on the road for miles together. And for all these yatras, people don't wear chappals. Once I boarded a flight in California in first class. It was a very, very costly travel, which I couldn't afford, my client could afford. So he put me on the first class. And I found one man wearing full dress, coat, pant, tie, but without any shoe and barefooted. He was walking, everybody was looking at him. It then struck me, he must be going to Sabarimala. And he was traveling a 23-hour flight from California via Hong Kong to Mumbai. And everywhere he was walking only barefoot. God can make a person do things which no one else can make a person do. So this is the power of God. And God is also making people to go into terror. People think, God has asked me to kill people. Whether it is right or wrong is irrelevant. But the fact remains, God is motivating them. You kill them, then you go to heaven. Whether that is right or wrong is a different thing. Whether it is true or not, I don't know. But God has the power to motivate a person even to kill. See, it's a very, very difficult subject. So God has to be understood in a very, very enlightened way. Otherwise, God can create chaos. See, what are the problems with God in the West? No, our God, we will come to it later. The problem with God in the West is God versus gods. Because that God doesn't accept other gods. So there is a fight between gods. Then God versus kings. That was the fight between the king and the church. That created the modern Europe. Whether it is France or Germany or Italy or Spain or England, this is all the creation of the fight between the kings and the church. Otherwise, the church was the only ruler. The church is supposed to be the reflective of the kingdom of God outside the earth, in heaven. Its reflected form is the church here. And so there is no king. And this created chaos. And so the local kings began fighting the church. And many people think it is the Protestants who broke the church. No. It is Archbishop Richelieu, who was the Archbishop of France, who revolted against the Roman Catholic Church and established the French nation. The concept of nation, national interest in European dictionary was a product of Archbishop Richelieu. There is a beautiful book by Henry Kissinger, the name Diplomacy. You need not have to read the entire book because it goes into all kinds of modern manipulations and all that. But the first chapter you must read as to how the entire European transformation from being a religious state into secular states, how it evolved. It is beautifully written by Henry Kissinger in the first chapter of the book called Diplomacy, and I would commend all of you to read it because it's about 100 pages. So then God versus science. God and science clashed because God said, the world is only 6,000 years old. Now carbon dating has said the world is at least 439 billion years old. So there is a huge, 49 billion years old. 439 crore years, yes. So there is a clash between science and God. Anyone who expounded science was thrown in jail. Galileo had so much of problems. So God and science clashed. And God and the godless clashed. People who said there was no God, they began clashing. And I am going to read out to you figures as to how many millions and millions were killed in this. All that we know to understand the importance of God and the relationship that we establish with God. If you establish an improper relationship with God, you will go to the extent of killing the faithful and also killing the people who do not believe in that God. It is a huge problem. So the relationship between God and man decides whether a man can be peaceful or violent. So these are very important issues which we have to handle. And religion has won against atheism. I told you about Tamil Nadu. The same thing happened in Poland. The same thing happened in Russia. I will read out the figures later as to how people who say my God is the only true God, how many millions they killed. The people who said you are wrong, your God is a false God, your God must go. How many millions they have killed? How many millions atheists are killed? How many million faithfuls are killed? I am going to give you figures. And also give you what India is. And then you will get an unbelievable picture as to how God can act in one fashion in one place, another fashion in another place. It is only because man's wrong relationship with God, which I will come to later. So, one thing is definite. The world can never be without God. There is one Jean-Pierre Layman, not a philosopher, not a religious person, not a spiritualist, not a believer in God. He wrote an article on the 30th of March 2006 in the Globalist magazine about religion and particularly Indian religions. It's a fantastic article, and in that article I am going to read out some parts relevant to each point I am making because he was an economist and he runs an NGO of many corporate heads in the world. A very respected person. He was the advisor to WTO also when Panich Pakdi was the chairperson of the WTO. And I will read out what he says about his relationship with God, what he believes to be God. He says, the progress of civilization requires the gradual eradication of all forms of established religion. The word you must note. Established religion. Not by force, but by evidence of history, the rationality of man, and the persuasion of the humanist to secularism. In Western Europe, where the vast majority of population is no longer Christian in anything but the name, sadly, humanism has not taken hold. They have removed God. But because of that, they have not become humane in nature. See the contradiction. And he himself not a believer in God. He says, I am not a believer in God myself. He says, in a global environment desperate for ideas, philosophy and religion, God is needed. The planet needs a sense of moral order, spirituality and an ethical compass. And so, God is needed, though God is not needed for me. The world believes in God and I have to accept. And so, even an atheist, an economic thinker, a corporate NGO running intellectual, he is a professor in IMD Management Institute in Switzerland. He says, you have to understand that God will exist and God will be powerful, God will be dominant, God will influence people. You have to accept this fact and handle the world. And how to handle, on that he goes on to say, which at relevant points where I am making my subject in tune with what he says, I will read out what he has to say. So, one thing is definite. God will continue to exist. But how to handle God is the most important challenge facing not only the faithful, but also the faithless. Now, I am going to read out the figures of how killings have taken place in the world. Not only in the name of God, but also against God, but also otherwise. Selected death tolls for wars, massacres and atrocities before the 20th century. There are two parts in it. This particular thing, it's in a website, and that website is called necrometrics.com. This compiles the figure of deaths all over the world in different conflicts, wars, religious wars, political wars, other killings. All these things are compiled. In the last 2000 years, 100 crore people have been killed. But you know what is the death in India? Before 13th century, the accounted deliberate killing in India, you will be surprised to know, before the 13th century. You know why the 13th century I mark? That is the time Islamic invasion began taking place in India. Was just 84,000 by way of sati and 50,000 by way of thagis. And now I am going to read out the figures in respect of other religious wars. 203 millions. Biblical war, 1.28 million. Slave trade, 19 million. These are all the death figures up to one part. The other part is selected pre-20th century domicide totals. In China, 33.5 million. By Mongols, 29.9 million. Slave of Africans, 17 million. Of Americans, 13 million. 30 years of war, 5 million. Like that, 625 million is the death caused before the 20th century. And during the 20th century, the massacres were more in the form of religious, other wars, religious and political wars. 262 million during the 20th century, just the previous 100 years. In this entire thing, it is in the Islamic invasion 4.5 million people died in India. Before that, just about 130,000. How is it that when the whole world was killing each other, there was comparative peace in this country? No such killing was taking place. Why? This is something which should interest a lot of research and studies. How, when barbarism was ruling the entire world, there was no such barbaric action in this country. What is the reason? There must be some reason. And it is one of the most thickly populated countries at all times in history. It is not that we had small population in a large span of land, and so there was no possibility of people clashing with each other. So, this is something which we have to bear in mind. This is what is going to be the foundation for my presentation today, as to how a deeply religious country, on the one hand, can be an extremely peaceful country. A deeply religious country, on the other hand, can be an extremely violent country. Both are religious, but one is extremely violent, or one set of countries which are extremely religious is extremely violent. On the other hand, there is a country which is extremely, equally religious, equally extremely religious, and extremely peaceful. And all the websites, research done on homicides, massacres, killings in history mark out India as an exception without such large-scale killings. This is an important point on the basis of which we have to build theory as to how to establish relationship with God. The same God. God cannot be different. But we have been able to establish a proper relationship with God. And what is that relationship? How that relationship has ensured peace, not only between gods, but also between faithfuls and even faithless. How did this capacity to understand God and establish relationship in this country arose? First of all, we understood the nature of human beings. You know, Rama was an epitome of godliness. A son who totally obeyed the father. And he is supposed to be not only a father, a totally faithful husband. He married only once, only one person. Dasharatha was marrying any number of people. But he was totally devoted to his father. And the man was Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma. This is how our people believe, that he was an embodiment of virtues. So, Dasharatha has a minister by name Jabali. So, Rama was doing Tarpanam for his ancestors. Jabali came and asked him, "You are a king. You will be followed by millions of people. You are the example. Are you so superstitious to do all this? You believe in this?" At that time, Rama, he was being asked and questioned by Dasharatha's minister, who is a non-believer. Are you a fool? You are supposed to set an example to people. You are demonstrating your superstition. Rama gets angry. At that time, Vasishtha tells him, you remove this element of his not being theistic or a believer, see how great a minister he is. You know how tolerance is built into human behavior. The element of tolerance is necessary if you have to worship God. If you have no tolerance, towards people who disrespect your faith, if you have no tolerance toward people who disbelieve in what you believe in, then your belief in God has no meaning. Your belief in God is purely ego and arrogance. Then comes Charuvaka. Charvaka was called a great rishi, a muni, a man of wisdom. And he said, you don't believe in this concept of God or dharma or anything. Life is to be lived. You have to be happy in life. And you must enjoy your life. You enjoy life as much as you can. If you don't have money, you borrow and enjoy. If you can't repay the money, you say, I can't repay. If you have money, I borrowed money from you. I don't have the money to repay. There is nothing called karma or dharma or values. You enjoy life. He was called a rishi. But we know how to marginalize a rishi also. The entire civilization marginalized him. Nobody followed him. But nobody killed him. Rama did not order killing of Jabali. Nobody ordered the killing of Charvaka. So you must understand, the entire population believing in God is also not the expectation of the ancients of this country. We always knew there will be divergences of opinion. In the most religious country, there will be most irreligious people also. You have to understand that they are also the creation of God. This wisdom only sustained peace and harmony in this country. This is something which no other civilization could even think of. No one could understand that God cannot create the people with the same kind of faith, same kind of dress, same kind of food, same kind of height, color. He has created a rainbow civilization. So our people understood it. With the result, Rama as God is analyzed even today in Pattimandrams in temples, whether Rama was right in sending Sita to forest. We can question our God. He is wrong. 4 people will argue on this side, 4 people will argue on the other side. Somebody will sit in judgment over the conduct of Rama. Whether Rama was right in killing Vali by hiding behind. It will be discussed even today. It is not that by saying Rama is wrong, you are having any less respect for Rama or devotion for Rama. Can you create this religious psychology unless there is a huge religious laboratory running here as to how to establish relationship with God, even analyze God? That is because there is an external God and there is an internal God. We have internalized God. God is not only part of life, God is part of us. You have to realize the God within. It is not that God is sitting 5 million kilometers away and trying to see whether you are doing the right or wrong thing. God is inside you. This is the difference between what is known as monotheism and monism. Monotheism is that there is only one God and He is the only God. And there is no other God. And if anyone says there is any other God, then you have to do your God's duty to even to eliminate that man. This fear comes. This is what Jean-Pierre Lehman says. He says, he compares India and monotheistic religions. You know, in our country, the biggest advantage is we have any number of gods. At one point, we had 33 crore gods, and the number of people in India were less. We had more gods than the followers. Gods were in plenty. You can assume as many gods as you want. At least 3 gods, everybody was given choicelessly. Your personal God, Ishta Devata, then Kula Devata, then Grama Devata. Whether you believe it or not, for the sake of the village you go and worship. Kula Devata, for the sake of the family you go and worship. Ishta Devata, you can have a God or you need not have a God. So the choice of multiples of gods made us tolerant first. Because your brother will be worshipping another God, your father will be worshipping one God, your neighbor will be worshipping one God, your friend will be worshipping one God. How can you say my God is superior, other gods are inferior? You can't. So Lehman says that even though the West is shocked at Islamic society's intolerance today, Christianity was even worse in its heyday, not only because of heathens were exterminated in all sorts of diverse forms, but also those whose Christianity was deemed to be heterodox. And also Spanish conquistadors in Latin America, in collusion with church authorities, burned a good number of infidel American Indians. These are all the kind of atrocities which were being perpetuated in the name of God. And he goes on to say that the importance of God should also be seen in the context that whether you have one God or many gods. If you have only one God and you believe that God is all powerful and omniscient, and if you come across someone who does not agree, then you may feel it is your duty to kill him. If on the other hand, you believe there are hundreds, indeed thousands of gods, and none of them can be totally almighty or omniscient, then you are likely to be far more tolerant, because your brother God is different from your God, your father's God is different. Then you tend to establish peace among gods. The greatest success of India was to have established peace between gods. All gods, we got them married to one another, they settled in peace. So we created a family of gods, with father, son, grandson. You know, it's a huge spiritual advantage India had. It is being questioned meaninglessly. We created an umbrella of gods. But behind this, we knew there is only one God. Only God. In everything there is God. In you there is God. In tree there is God. In forest there is God. In mountain there is God. In river there is God. God manifests in everything. That one thought which unified all the gods, all the people, the creation, the nature, the stone, the mountain. This is a huge idea which is called monistic. Behind everything, there is only one source of divinity. Monotheism is, behind this there is one God, this identified God, God with a telephone number, email and address. It is this one miscalculation, misinterpretation, misformation of the concept of God that led to millions and millions of people being exterminated. You know, in China and Russia, almost 300 people were killed because they believed in God by communists. 1/4 of Cambodian population was eliminated by Pol Pot in the 20th century because they believed in God. Atheists killed others. India also we had atheists. In Tamil Nadu, 30 years the atheists ruled, but nobody was killed. And God defeated atheists. He didn't kill anybody. That you were an atheist yesterday, I will kill you. Our God, our faithfuls did not do it. Behind all this is how you relate yourself to God and how you relate gods to one another. If the God is an exclusive God, that I am the only God, the legitimate God, that all other gods are false gods, then you have paved way for violence, war, extermination, massacre and killings. That is why 9 lakh, actually the figures go up to 90 lakh. Women were burnt at stakes because they differed from the mainline worship in the West. Even Joan of Arc was killed in the open road. See how a wrong relationship you establish with God. As if you are the representative of God and you have to punish people who did not believe in Him, and it is your divine duty to kill the other person. This is what makes terror an output of religion. That a wrong relationship you establish with God. I am here to protect God. Does God require protection? And once you take upon yourself the responsibility of protecting God, then obviously if anything wrong happens to the God, or any danger you see, or any abuse you hear, or any humiliation heaped upon your God or religion, or the text, or your belief system, or your dress, or your way of life, you respond by killing. That has never happened in this country. This is the greatest gift of India to the world. Harmony among religions. Not harmony, just harmony among the religious people. Because we had harmony amongst ourselves, we didn't have any problem if somebody worshipped X God or Y God. And we had millions of gods, I told you, 33 crore gods, abundance of God. But because somebody worshipped one God, they killed each other. Because the God wanted a beard of 6 inches and you are having a beard of only 3 inches, and I will kill you. Because you are disobeying God. You see the extent to which your loyalty, perceived loyalty to God, can make you a barbaric man or a woman. So this is an extremely important subject. And not only that, we saw human beings as God. For example, parents as God, father and mother as God. You know, I don't know how many of you have gone to Pandharpur. In Pandharpur, God came and he wanted to attract the attention of the devotee. The devotee said, you sit there. I am doing my service for my mother. He didn't even take notice of the presence of God. That was the level to which devotion to mother was considered to be more than even devotion to God. At one point, there was no difference between God and mother. At one point in our mind. So parents as God, teachers as God. It is nowhere in any other civilization. In fact, there are certain religions which forbid you are touching the feet of the parents. That is wrong, irreligious. But we not only made it religious, we made it mandatory. Our religion even went to the extent of saying even God is not important, your mother is important. So we moderated the power of God. You saw God in your mother, not independent of the mother. You saw God in your parents. You saw God in your elders. So when I had gone to America in the year 2001, there is a big problem in America. Man and woman clash there like dogs and cats. They always think man is a woman's enemy, woman is a man's enemy. So I thought that we must, for a large American audience, see, large American audience means you can't get 500 people in America. You will get 100 people. In about 100, 120, about 70, 80 were white women. So I addressed that meeting. I had taken 3 pictures. The picture of Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati. So I showed these 3 pictures to them. This is Durga, the goddess of power. This is Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. This is Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. Goddess? Because their concept of God is that God is a man. Because the religious text says, God created man in his own image. So it is a photograph. God's photograph is man. What happens to woman? No, she is not. She lacks divinity. With the result, till the 7th century, they were not allowed into any place of worship. In fact, they were considered to be impediment to reach God, and so they were being killed. One wrong interpretation. How can a formless God be a man? God is formless, according to the literature. But how can you call him a man? One wrong interpretation has led to killings and slaughtering of millions. So, I said, yes, our God can be not only man, they can also be women. All of you must go today and think you have no woman God. What is your relationship with religion? You tell me, all these women who are here, girls who are here. you will feel completely alienated from religion. You will have nothing to do with religion except through a man. Gender conflict will arise there. Religion creates the gender conflict. Here God can be man, God can be woman. And one step more, God can be both, Ardhanarishwara. And it completely reflects the modern scientific opinion that the appearance of a person or a man or a woman is not the complete picture of the deeper conflict and confluence inside, because the X chromosomes and Y chromosomes keep on tussling, and that which is dominant becomes the appearance. But that need not be the dominant feature within, and so there can be a man with woman's qualities and a woman with man's qualities, and this tussle goes on within a man. So the man-woman conflict is within a man and a woman, not between man and woman. This is our understanding. So our God can be man, our God can be woman, our God can be both, our God can be neither. It is beyond. Then I explained to them. They were shaken by our philosophy. And said it is not only our God can be woman, our woman can be God. Then I explained to them the concept of Kanya Puja, Suhasini Puja. We worship women as God. They said physically? Yes, physically. They are put and people worship them. Mantras are recited. And even the father does except Namaskaram, he does everything. A woman can be God. And there is one question that was asked at that time. Sir, is man worshipped like that in India? I said no. Our religion is that way, partial against man. A man is not worshipped, a woman is worshipped. Has anyone understood the depth? Because they are the source of creation. The respect for womanhood in India is basically spiritual. And this is not a philosophic proposition which is in Vedas and Upanishads and Puranas. You go to the slum. How can you talk this wrong word in front of a woman? How can you smoke in front of a woman? How can you fold your dhoti in front of a woman? An illiterate person also internalizes this quality. How many educated people have understood this in this country? How many intellectuals have understood this in the country? What kind of work must have been done by thousands of people, the rishis, the saints, the alvars, the nayanmars, to create this feeling and to internalize it in people that you have to respect women. That is precisely why there is a gender conflict, because women are not respected in the West. Conflict between woman and God. And they go to the extent of saying this low status for women in the West is because of religion. Because the religion treats us as not being in the image of God. And we have validity only through a man. And we don't want religion. Conflict between God and woman. But here, it's entirely different. Has anyone done a comparative study of gender impact on religion and religious impact on gender in this civilization and other civilizations? Nothing. If in India there is no killing, it is because of this. In fact, even sati, forced sati, was unknown in India. Forced sati. This is recorded by Benting himself. It is voluntary sati, which, in the life of Harsha, there is an incident which is recorded. Harsha was a Buddhist, and his friend's wife was going to commit sati. So he sends a horseman, goes and persuades her, falls at her feet, please don't commit sati. It is a person's volition. Nobody forced. Of course, in later Bengal, they say there was some force. But in ancient India, there was no force. So you must understand that forced killing in India was so less. As I told you, Thuggees, the criminals killed 50,000 people in the entire pre-20th century period. Why? It is because we knew how to handle God. We played with our God. We bet our God. Pittukku Mansu Vanda Kada you must have heard. God was beaten. And God took the beating. We could play with God. Thiruvilayadalgal. God was not somebody away. He is our neighbor. He is our friend. He is our servant. That is how God was made into part of our life. You know, this is the reason why we could not kill in the name of God. We were killed in the name of God. But we did not kill in the name of God because of this high ideal that God pervades in everybody. And Adi Shankara's that Manisha Panchagam, where Adi Shankara as a man and Vivekananda as a man, in spite of all the jnanas and enlightenment they had in their life, there are two incidents. You know, Vivekananda wanted to smoke a hookah, and he went there and he found that man was an untouchable. And for a moment he took the hookah and gave it back to him. Then it struck him. What is wrong if I smoked a hookah of an untouchable? But that 1 second he became an ordinary man. This difference would always be there in human beings. But there is a higher consciousness which manifests in them. The same thing happened with Shankara. When he asked that Pulaya to go away, he asked, are you asking my body to go? Are you asking my soul to move away? Then Adi Shankara accepted him as the man who revealed Advaita to him. In the life of such great people also, this tussle comes, but wisdom manifests. That is how in this country, diversity in this country is several times more than the diversity in the rest of the world put together. Conflicts in this country are several times the conflicts in the rest of the world put together. But that has not made us inhuman or barbaric. We have not even analyzed how in this country this huge population existed. It is because we did not kill people. You know what is the number of people that were killed in the expedition in America? We are all educated people. Now it is scientifically established. How much population was exterminated in America? Can anyone stand up and say in this audience? The Native Americans who were exterminated, their number is now put at 200 million. The entire population was eliminated. And modern America was created. You know, there was an incident when this 9/11 attack took place in America. At that time, Bill Clinton made a statement. It is our karma that we killed millions and millions of Native Americans that is revisiting us. This was an open statement made by a former American president when the 9/11 attack took place. But in the history of India, there is no such violence. Why? Now you will know what will promote religious harmony. There was a debate in Madurai Kamaraj University. In which year? In 1997, in which I had been invited to talk. I am not, as Vaid Subramaniam may keep introducing me as an economist. Economists do not accept me as economist. And he may introduce me as a theologian. Theologists won't accept me as a theologist. But somebody called me to expound the Hindu theology there. Hindus have actually no theology. They have only philosophy. Theology means belief in only one way of worship. That is not there in this country. So anyhow, I started talking. I said I have absolutely no problem to accept all the religious rituals, celebrations, gods, texts of both Islam and Christianity. I will celebrate Christmas. On that day, we will have payasam, vadai. We will be very happy. You have no problem. We have 33 crore gods. We can add 2 more. There is no difficulty. So we know how to handle religion and God. So why that title of the conference is Religious Harmony. Madan Allinakka Mahanadu. I said, this is not needed for us. My 2 friends are sitting there. Let them say that Mariamman and Maryamman are one and the same. We have no problem. But so long as you are not able to say, the problem is with you. It is not with me. I am able to accept. You know, Rajmata of Gwalior, one of the noblest women I have come across in politics. Whenever she crossed a mosque or a church, she used to get down, worship and move. One of the greatest Hindu leaders. She was called communal. And I know she was such a noble woman. Trained in the tradition of the Indian spiritual model. I said, these 2 people, the Archbishop and some Qazi was there. Sir, please accept all gods as the same. And if you accept it, we need not have any debate. Why detain the people for 3 more hours? They could not. You know why? Misinterpretation of the religion. Misinterpretation of their own literature. Misunderstanding of the concept of human life, which has led to killing. It has not stopped even today. And a mighty power like America is facing the wrath of Islamic God. It doesn't know how to handle this. So you must know, the idea is doctrinal tolerance. This is the most important thing which we have to understand. Encyclopedia Britannica says why Hinduism, or Hinduism means Indian religions, any religion born in this country, whether it is Buddhism or Jainism or Sanatana Dharma or Arya Samaj, whatever. About that, all these are, Hinduism is a commonwealth of religions. It is not one religion, one God, one textbook. It is not there. There are thousands and thousands of textbooks, each conflicting with the other also. One text says you must worship your father like Rama did. Another text says that the way Prahlada defied his father is also right. One text, Sita obeyed her husband, that is right. Meera defied her husband, that is right. See the bandwidth. And that is what promotes tolerance. Because then you are supposed to find a way for yourself. And you have a guru, you have your own near and dear, you have your own role models, and there is not one person who can guide the destiny of the entire civilization. Every attempt to unify people, every attempt to create one role model, every attempt to create one church has killed millions and millions of people. You know, you have temple for Shiva, you have temple for Shakti. You will find in each place there is a different Shakti. And for each of them there is a followers. Karumariamman followers are there. And you go, these Samayapuram followers are there. There is no conflict. Samayapuram followers do not say, if you go to Karumariamman, I will break your leg. No. You know this bandwidth. This is what Encyclopedia Britannica says. In principle, Hinduism incorporates all forms of beliefs and worship without necessitating the selection or elimination of any. How beautifully put. This is a literature produced by Christian civilization. The Hindu is inclined to revere the divine in every manifestation, whatever it may be, and is doctrinally tolerant. This is the most important thing. Your doctrine must be tolerant. Every individual is actually intolerant. I would always like my God to be worshipped by Srinivasan. Why does he worship another God? But my literature must say, he must have the choice to worship the God he pleases. That is what makes me tolerate his worshipping another God. That doctrinal tolerance is there. That basic faith that all gods are same. And behind all this there is only one force. These are all outer manifestations. In the way you want to see God, you create God. In our village, there is one L.I. Kali temple. To the L.I. Kali temple, we will all go in the evening and offer coconut and then banana and then do harati. She is a very soft God at that time. At 8 o'clock in the night, she turns non-vegetarian and eats goat and then drinks booze. You know why? The people who worship her have turned her into that. The God becomes like what you want. It does not want you to be like what it is. There is a difference. The same God. We don't go and complain to that God, why did you become non-vegetarian yesterday? You know what an amount of work must have gone in for the entire Indian population to rise above this. A Hindu may embrace a non-Hindu religion without ceasing to be a Hindu. A judgment was given by the Supreme Court in a case involving a TVS family member who married a German Christian. And a child was born. And the child was named as Nicholas Sundaram. Sundaram was the grandfather. Nicholas Sundaram was the name of the child. Whether the father and mother, Nicholas Sundaram, constituted a Hindu undivided family was the issue. Wife was a Christian. Son was named as Nicholas Sundaram. The father was, of course, Hindu in the quote-unquote narrow sense of the term. So the case went to the Supreme Court in the wealth tax assessment, whether they should be assessed as Hindu undivided family or not. It is in that case the Supreme Court quoted this particular part of the Encyclopedia Britannica and said, yes, it is a Hindu undivided family. A Christian or a Muslim can be a Hindu. Can you believe this? In no other religion, because if a non-believer can be a Hindu, a person who believes in another God can also be a Hindu, because we have no problem with God. You can always accommodate one more God. What is the problem? So, a Hindu may embrace a non-Hindu religion without ceasing to be a Hindu, and since the Hindu is disposed to think synthetically and to regard all forms of worship, strange gods, divergent doctrines, as inadequate rather than wrong or objectionable. We want more gods, more festivals, more vadai, more payasam, more celebration. If one more God is there, one more function. So the existing gods are even inadequate. We want more gods. Strange gods, divergent doctrines, as inadequate rather than wrong or objectionable. He tends to believe that the highest divine powers complement each other for the well-being of the world and the mankind. Few religious ideas are considered to be finally irreconcilable. Did it remain in text? Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago in 1893. At that time, this country was in ruins. This civilization was dead. This religion was written off by people who were the greatest followers of this religion. And he went and told the world a truth. And that conference had been organized to declare Christianity is the only true religion in the world. And I tell you, what that person who organized the convention, he wrote in his diary. Reverend Henry Burroughs, pastor in the First Presbyterian Church of Chicago And the chief organizer of Parliament recorded that the audience went into rapture with a peal of applause that lasted for several minutes when Swami Vivekananda said, "Sisters and brothers of United States of America," he had 5 minutes to speak. He lost 2.5 minutes in the claps and he had only 2.5 minutes to speak. And he spoke only 471 words. He changed the entire discourse, paradigm, thinking of the world. How many of you have read that speech? Please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sir, Digavada. I want only students. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Shastra is better. Because in Saranathan College this morning I asked an audience of at least 1500. Not even one raised their hand. I asked this question in Anna University where they had asked me to address the valedictory session of Swami Vivekananda's 150th anniversary. 600 boys and girls, not a single boy or girl lifted the hand. Just 471 words. He changed the course of thinking in the world. That's what the person who organized the meeting to declare Christianity as the only true religion, what he records in the diary about these 471 words. I'm going to read out. After silence was restored, he delivered his historical address, comprising exactly 471 words in 2 minutes. Vivekananda unveiled the Hindu view of universal validity of all faiths. This is not his writing. I am explaining to come to his quote later. Validity of all the faiths, an idea unknown to religions born outside India. He demolished the hidden agenda to get the parliament not for Christianity as a superior universal faith. Burroughs was explicitly committed to the superiority of Christianity as the universal religion, to the Bible and as the universal book, and to Jesus Christ as the universal Savior. Admits James Ishmael Ford of the First Unitarian Church as late as on February 22, 2009. For many of the Christian and Unitarian organizers, the barely hidden agenda to show the superiority of Protestant Christianity, but the show was by universal acknowledgement totally and completely stolen by Swami Vivekananda. The man told them, there is no difference between your God and my God. The fact which they never knew. And none of you have read those 471 words. You can understand the extent of ignorance under which India is wallowing. It's a third pain I am undergoing among students. In the 150th anniversary of Swami Vivekananda, we have not read these 471 words. We read all muck. Please, today, my request is, go and read in your computer Swami Vivekananda's Chicago speech, 471 words. It will not take you more than 2 minutes. That much devotion you can show to the country. See what Burroughs writes. Burroughs wrote, Swami Vivekananda's 3 speeches undoubtedly drew the most attention from the American public. The media comment was, Swami Vivekananda's address before the parliament was broad as heavens above us, embracing the best in all religions as the ultimate universal religion. Another comment was, this man is a heathen. Said one as he came out of the great meeting. And we send missionaries to his people. It would be better and fitting. They send missionaries to us. We need this truth from us. This is the American media. We are so much disconnected from as recent happening as the address of Swami Vivekananda in his 150th anniversary. Our knowledge is questionable and the ignorance is unpardonable. Please elevate your standards of knowledge to the minimum level. I don't want you to do higher studies, minimum of minimum things. The idea that Swami Vivekananda expounded the universal validity of all the faiths was in 1893. In 2008, all the religions came together in Amsterdam. And Swami Dayananda Saraswati represented the Indian religions, all the religions of India. And in that they admitted all religions are valid. It took 115 years after Swami Vivekananda uttered this truth. This is a message that India can only give because it has kept it in living form. You know what Swami Vivekananda said there? You will be amazed by his speech. In just 471 words, he unveiled a living model. Not something which is in library. Not something which is in word of mouth. Not something which is in thought. Something which is in action. And you must understand this, what he said in that meeting. I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. I am tolerating your religion means my religion is superior, your religion is inferior. Even then I tolerate you. No, there is violence in your mind. Both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, we accept all religions as true, something which the West never knew and even now does not. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and refugees of all religions and of all nations on the earth. I am proud to tell you, we have gathered in our bosom the purest remnants of the Israelites who came to the southern India and took refuge with us in the very year in which their holy temple was shattered to pieces. In the year 72, Common Era, the Jews were thrown out. Their temple was demolished. They were strewn in 108 countries in the world. India was one of the countries. This is the only country which mothered them like a mother does to a child. I am proud to belong to a religion which has sheltered and is still fostering the remnants of the great Zoroastrian nation. These two instances we must know as to what it means. You know, in the year 1967, the Israeli consulate in Bombay brought out a booklet about Indians in Israel. In that, the editor says, while most others came back to Israel, because all the Israelis from all over the world came to Israel when Israel was formed in 1947. And from India also people went back. 56,000 Marathi-speaking Jews went back to Israel. And even now many of them talk Marathi. While most others came back to Israel driven by persecution, discrimination, murder, and other attempted total genocide, Jews of India came back because of their desire to participate in the building of the third Jewish Commonwealth. Throughout their long sojourn in India, mark these words, it is the Israeli consulate certifying what Swami Vivekananda said in 1893, in 1967. Throughout their long sojourn in India, nowhere and at no point were they subjected to intolerance, discrimination, and persecution. We kept them in our bosom. This is what Swami Vivekananda says. The same case with Parsis. The Parsis came completely destroyed. Iran is no more a Parsi nation. There is no Parsi literature, there is no Parsi god, there is no Parsi hero. It is these 50,000 people who are here, they constitute the Parsi nation. And see what the Parsis say. And there is so much to be said about Jews. There is a beautiful book written by the Jews in Kerala. You must buy that book and read. It was written by a Jew. As to how the Cochin king gave the land adjoining his own temple and asked the Jews to build their synagogue and told them that you should not be affected by our laws, our way of life, and gave them a right to rule that place by their own laws. Gave them independence. And it is the Portuguese who came and attacked them. The Dutch people came and attacked the Jews then. Intolerance comes 6,000 miles away to hit the Jews. Now, you take the Parsis. A little over 1,000 years ago, a bedraggled and tired group of persecuted people from Iran landed at, this is in the history of Parsis by the Parsi Society of India. And Sanjan, a tiny principality about 100 kilometers from the present Mumbai, ruled by Jadi Rana. The beleaguered king, not keen on allowing foreign refugees to settle in his tiny kingdom, sent a bowl of milk to the foreigners, signifying the land was full and could not accept any more. Understanding Jadi Rana's ploy, the leader of the refugees added a pinch of sugar to the bowl, which did not overflow. Jadi Rana understood this astute gesture of sweetening the milk and the message behind it, and graciously allowed the Parsis to say, since then legend had it that they have added only to the sweetness of the Indian people. 50,000 people, the greatest industrialist, the greatest lawyer, the greatest doctor, the greatest lawyer, who stopped them? It is not the Constitution of India which guarantees protection to minorities. It is the culture of India. The Constitution of India is a product of India's culture. Pakistan was still the other day part of India. Why it could not produce a similar constitution? Tell me. When culture changed, behavior changed, attitude changed, acceptance changed, intolerance developed, killings took place. The same man, give him another idea, he becomes a different person. This nation has this message to deliver to this world. Not just the message of tolerance. You must teach the world that my God and your God are same. This message cannot be taught by any other nation in the world except the nation which has practiced it. It is not just theory. It's not an idea to be just evangelized. It's not something which can be lectured into another person's mind. It has to be lived and followed. It is a role model. The world needs it. If religious harmony has to be there, India has to become the guru of the world. There is no other way, otherwise killings will take place. Nobody can stop the killings. Is that responsibility capable of being discharged by Indian intellectuals, Indian educational institutions, Indian media, Indian religious institutions? This is the biggest challenge. This challenge is for India, and I will complete my presentation with reference to the war models of the world. You know, the worst things are justified only in a war. In normal life, people behave well. In a war, in that anger, in that frustration, in the treatment of enemy, he is an enemy, we have to finish him. This is the normal model of war. See how, till 1897, when at the Hague an international convention took place, no nation in the West distinguished between combatants and non-combatants. The non-combatants were also treated as combatants. Women were butchered, killed and raped. A woman became the property of the winning army. So, this is what the Encyclopedia Britannica says about how the war model was. There is evidence. The unrelieved barbarism informed all wars in the West. But see what it says. There is evidence that some civilizations prohibited certain methods of warfare. Manu's law of India prohibited around 500 BC use of poisoned weapons and other inhumane methods. A Swedish working group study on conventional weapons and the deployment and effective humanitarian aspects for the recommendation of Stockholm said, but elsewhere the barbaric practices often accompanied victory in war. The maxim vae victis implied vanquished nation could expect little mercy. This was the rule of war. See what is our rule. The concept of war was divided into three categories: Dharma Yuddha, Lobha Yuddha, Asura Yuddha, in our entire concept. Dharma Yuddha means you must win a war without a battle. Everybody must accept you as a king without you waging a war. Some war may be needed, but there should be no killing. Then Lobha Yuddha, Vijaya means that you can appropriate others' nation. Asura Vijaya means you can appropriate their women, kill their children. A.L. Basham says the third kind of warfare, which was common in the rest of the world, was never practiced in India. I am going to read out that part. A.L. Basham says, after severely indicting India, he was not a great friend of India, but he says, yet overall impression is that in no part of the world were relationship of man and man and of man and state so fair and humane. In no other early civilization were slaves so few in number. In no other ancient law book are the rights so well protected as in Arthashastra. No other ancient lawgiver proclaimed such noble ideals of fair play in battle as did Lord Manu. In her history of warfare, Hindu India had fewer tales to tell of cities put to sword or the massacre of non-combatants. The ghastly sadism of the kings of Assyria, who flayed their captives alive, is completely without parallel in ancient India. There was sporadic cruelty or oppression, no doubt, but in comparison to the conditions of other countries, it was mild. To us, the most striking feature of ancient India was its humanity. You know why? It was because of the rules of war. If the adversary had no shield, he should not be attacked. This is the rule of war. If the fight took place between two persons who had the same weapons, if somebody had a sword and somebody had a spear, they are not supposed to fight. Only a man with a spear can fight with a man with a spear. If one was a horseman, he should never think of attacking a charioteer. A man sitting on a horse cannot attack a man on the ground. These were practiced. It was considered to be a disgrace for a warrior to stoop down and abandon the morals of his profession. For a warrior, death is considered to be preferable to ignominious victory. These are all the characteristics of war. You know, they were practiced in the 16th and 17th century in Kerala. Madhav Menon, who wrote the history of Kerala, he characterized how between Portuguese and the Mamerin king there was a war. And the Mamerin king wrote a letter to the Portuguese. He said, we will start the war only after the sunrise, we will beat the drum. That means we have declared we are ready for war. You beat the drum, then only we will begin attacking you. Till you beat the drum, we won't attack you. And then he said, no, why we allow 10,000 people from both sides to hit each other? Send the best 10 people from your side, we will send the 10 people from our side. Let them fight. And if one team gets defeated, at that point we can have peace. I accept you as the victor, I may accept my failure. If at that time we want send 100 people more, then 200 people more, and the war should be, the people should not be disturbed, commerce should not be disturbed, educational institutions should not be disturbed. We should have a war in the playground outside. The Portuguese said, this man is calling for a war, or is he asking for sports? You know, in the 16th century this happened. Madhav history of Kerala says, the Portuguese were laughing at us. A superior humane model of war, where a man loses all his balance, justifies everything, Even in that, there are rules. This is what. In fact, in 1897 only, the Western countries accepted the difference between combatants and non-combatants, but that did not apply to other religious people. That means, if there are fights between Christians, and non-combatant Christians should not be hit. But if there are other religious people, they could be hit, even in 1897. The amount of practice that you must have inherited in your culture, civilization, spirituality, politics, for you to have a humane warfare. These are all the knowledge upgradation we need to speak for India, our culture, our civilization. And the world needs it. We don't want propaganda today. Economic performance is sufficient to lift India to the status of being world power. But we don't want to be a world power like other powers. We have to change the grammar of power. We have to change the culture of power. We have to change relationships through power. We have only this message. This is what Swami Vivekananda said at that time. I feel a huge knowledge revolution is needed. And all of us must upgrade ourselves. And this is going to be the message which you will be delivering 20 years from now. The world will be looking up to how you framed these rules of war. We thought we were the great people who framed this rule of war in 1897. How Manu framed this rule of war 3000 years ago. They are going to ask you that it was practiced till you made us not practice this. In fact, Madhav Menon says, the Mamerin king felt we were fools to practice this rule. We must also hit them in the night. We must poison the food supplies to them. Understand how a lower culture spreads its thoughts to a higher culture. So we have a huge job to do. It is not just a matter of discussing what is religious harmony. It's a huge subject. The world needs it. India is the only practicing laboratory in the world. We must understand this. I implore all of you to study this. It's all available on the net. It's all available in the most easiest form of gathering knowledge. You may not even have to spend more than a half a dozen hours to get this kind of updates. And I think all of us owe it to this civilization, to this world, to say religious harmony is actually harmony among religion and gods, not just among the followers of religion. This message only we can give, and we need to give this message. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for generously accepting to take a few questions. So volunteer quickly. Here. Morning, did we miss out on somebody and you want to ask? Okay, I'll identify the questioners. 1, then there 2, anybody else? 3, and we'll wait. We'll see how it goes, and then 4. Okay. Yeah, please quick. Make it very short.
Good evening, sir. My name is Vignesh. So you were talking about we being the moderators from the past, but how do we come to the conclusion that who among the humans at present can moderate for religious harmony? Because like nowadays we all are, everybody is keen about getting a power. So according to you, who can be a better moderator nowadays?
You see, there is a concept called soft power, which is now being accepted as the most important point for a country's civilization and geopolitics. Soft power is considered to be more acceptable, a greater and a comforting winner as compared to hard power. You know, Joseph Nye, a Harvard professor, wrote a book in 1983 as to how America is being seen as a thug. Huge army, navy, missiles, atom bombs, wars. He said, why are you projecting this country as a rogue? Why don't you project your Harvard, Stanford? Why don't you project, of course, Americans are basically traders. He said, why don't you project Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Mickey Mouse? These are all soft items. The concept of soft power began gaining ground in global diplomacy. You know, after India exploded the atom bomb, a huge attention came to India. Is India also becoming a hard power? In fact, President Nixon, no, not President Clinton, said this is a country of Buddha and Gandhi. How did they explode atom bomb? So somebody asked, it was always a land of Buddha and Gandhi. Did you respect that country? Only after we exploded the atom bomb, you began respecting that country. You don't know how to respect softness. Now we are teaching what is softness. The same Joseph Nye said, India is the greatest soft power in the world. You know, one lady, Meera Menon or somebody, produced a film called Monsoon Wedding. You know, many Americans, Russians said, we want to get married like Indians. And thousands of them are coming to India to get married like Indians. And after the Afghanistan war, the foreign minister of India went from here. And of course he took medicines and things like that. But he took 3 million cassettes of Hindi songs and films because the Afghans wanted it. You know what is the biggest problem of Pakistan? How to stop the Indian movies being telecast? Bollywood is taking over Pakistan. The art, music, the sculpture, the behavior. Ultimately, the thought that all gods are same is the greatest soft power India can have, because the world is being cornered. It needs a way out. And you can't give a way out by writing, I am writing a book, you read that book. No, they want a living model. You have a living model. And that living model we must recognize first. So I feel that India is still the living laboratory of qualities which the world needs. Lakhs and millions of people have kept alive the Indian way of life. Though there are millions and millions who have given up that way of life and taken to Western way of life and questioning our way of life and thinking the whole world is to become like West, with 55% first marriages ending in divorce, 67% second marriages ending in divorce, 74% third marriages ending in divorce, 41% of the babies being born unwed mothers. No, we will also be like that once. There is a group of people in India who are saying it. Completely reject them. The Indian soft power is going to manifest. And we have abundance of soft power. One of the softest power we have is that we have a God who is not a hard God. We have a soft God.
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir, for your nice lecture. I would like to hear your comments on academic terror, in particular reference to Professor Wendy Doniger's works.
You know, in 1930s, a lady wrote a book titled Mother India. Her name was Catherine Mayo. And she wrote such nonsense about India. And that book created, already India's name was bad, it was a slave country, all kinds of wrong things are going on in India, it is a semi-barbaric civilization. This is how Churchill described India. Many people praise Churchill in India because of his good English. Please don't do it. English is a very deceptive mechanism to understand a person. Behind that soft, beautiful combination of words, was a man who hated India from his gut. He classified us as semi-barbaric people. Karl Marx classified India as a barbaric race. These are the persons who spread the intellectual thoughts in India. So Catherine Mayo's book trashed India, blackened India, destroyed India's image. So people came to Mahatma Gandhi and said, "Sir, we are not able to face this." Gandhi took that book. He had no time to read, but he struggled and read the whole book. And then in one sentence he destroyed that book. He said it is a gutter inspector's report. In one sentence, the entire book was destroyed. We need not have to go into point by point on Doniger's book. Someone will have to find one effective sentence, and that man must be an effective person. That is the only way to answer.
Dr. Pogrein, the penultimate question. Yeah.
Sir, you spoke about religious harmony and harmony among gods, etc. It was heartening actually, but you also spoke about India being a living laboratory of all these models. But we still have not come out of this caste discrimination within a single religion itself. So what is your comment on that?
I don't want a single religion. As there are as many religions in India as there are gods. If you form a single religion, there will be only violence. That is why I said we are a commonwealth of religions.
That harmony is okay, but harmony among different castes of the same religion. Like
That is why I told you, all these castes have lived. But where is the violent death? It is only in modern times, because caste and politics has got mixed, there is violence. Caste, the religion and politics has got mixed, that is why there is violence. Why I proved to you that in the entire pre-20th century, the death in India due to such reasons is only 1.2 lakh. Whereas in the world, in this period, there have been almost 75 crore deaths. Why? We had the same caste division, we had thousands of gods, we had also gods. We made God violent, but we were peaceful. All our gods had weapons. In the West, no god has weapon. All the weapons were handed over to the people. We handed over all the weapons to the god and we remained peaceful.
Just one sub-question of the same. I'm not able to understand the comparison based on the number of deaths. Should we not, with our wisdom, should we not look at the pain and suffering, not necessarily the death? The violence need not be ending in death. Even the pain and suffering is beyond our perception if we have to be real human beings as manifestations of God or the image of God.
We have to produce more people like you.
Last question.
You are talking about hurt and other problems which causes. But what about within the same family, people causing to each other without relation to anything? The human nature is always that. That is why you need a higher thought, more noble people. You have to evolve an ecosystem in which such people will be. We need tall people. You don't have tall people today because everybody is pursuing money. How can anybody be tall? In our country, we respected people who did not go after money, who did not go after wealth, who did not go after power, but everybody is chasing it now. So you don't have tall people. So we need tall people. We need to create an atmosphere in which tall people will grow. That is the answer for this. Not that everybody should be dressing in the same way, there should be no caste. It will not happen. If there is no caste, it will be something else.
Last question, Swami.
No, communism attempted this. That everybody should be equal. There should be no wealth difference. There should be no this difference or that difference. That ended up killing 300 million people. Why? You are going against nature, which is diverse.
So, thank you for your speech, sir. You have commented that India is a laboratory for religious tolerance and harmony, and we have observed it. We see Christians and Muslims and Hindus living in the same flat and sharing in the festivals. But sir, if a monotheistic religion like Christianity or Islam, in the doctrine itself, they say that you cannot have any other God other than me. And if commandments, one of the 10 commandments in the Bible says that you cannot have any other God. And there's one phrase that even says that Jesus said that I'm the only way, the truth and the life to God. So how can you convince a monotheistic religion to change its doctrine? Because doctrine is so fundamental to religion. How can you convince them that you have to accept other doctrines also, other ideas also?
See, basically, you must not think Jesus is a person with an address, a telephone number, and an email. You should think he is Brahman. He is the way. You interpret it like that. Then there is no problem. Only when you interpret Jesus as somebody different from Brahman. So we will say Rama is Brahman, is a reflection of Brahman. Krishna is a reflection of Brahman. We will relate everything. Mariamman is a reflection of Brahman. The matter is over. Because there is no ultimate concept of Brahman, that monistic element is absent, which Plato and Socrates borrowed from India according to Machiavelli, Thomas Machiavelli, who has written a book recently after 30 years of research, how this thought went from India, the Advaita thought, and reflected in the Greco-Roman attitudes. This should inform both Christianity and Islam. And it will, because of communication, because of problems, this is the only solution. See, for every idea, the time has to come, realization has to come, pressure has to develop. People should think there is no other alternative. Then only this realization will come. And we must have the faith that it will come. And so we have a huge responsibility on hand. We cannot say we are like any other religion. We are a religion which accepts all religion. We have to say that you are part of us. We must keep on saying it.
Thank you very much, sir, for expounding on a very it's a very tough subject to understand in a 2-hour discourse. But nevertheless, he made it very simple in a style that is characteristically Mr. Gurumurthy's. May I now request the registrar to please kindly hand over a memento on behalf of the university, please. Dr. Srinivasan for a quick word of thanks, sir.
Respected audience, today afternoon we had the second innings of our intellectual cricket match. Today morning, our Ajit Dovalji, as an opening batsman in his match, he described more on the strategic response to terrorism. And in the afternoon, Gurumurthy ji, our learned scholar speaker today, he threw more light on the subject, does religion have terror? I used to describe to my friends, Gurumurthy ji is one of the rarest intellectuals in our country who could disturb the comfort mind and who could give comforts to the disturbed mind. So today we were all very comfortable. He has disturbed us a lot. We will all face sleepless nights today, contemplating your ideas, sir. And he narrated the importance of religions and gods and how to handle gods and how to handle religions and how gods are indispensable in our civilization also. I am reminded of one small Tamil poem written by some modern poet. Saivargal கடவுளை சிவன் என்று சொன்னார்கள், வைணவர்கள் கடவுளை திருமால் என்று சொன்னார்கள், முஸ்லீம்கள் கடவுளை அல்லாஹ் என்று சொன்னார்கள், நாத்திகர்கள் கடவுளை இல்லை என்று சொன்னார்கள். So how atheism also being accepted in our civilization, it was beautifully explained by Shri Gurumurthy ji, and particularly the point he insisted on women gods and women as gods. This is a very important point. And again I want to recollect from my memory, there was one question and answer in Tuklak in which Cho has replied to a question. பெண்களை கடவுள் என்று சொல்கிறார்களே அது உண்மைதானா? இதுதான் கேள்வி. அதுக்கு சோ என்ன பதில் சொல்லியிருக்கிறார் என்றால், பெண்களை கடவுள் என்று சொன்னது உண்மைதான், அவர்களை கடவுளைப் போல வழிபட வேண்டும் என்று சொல்லிவிட்டு அடுத்ததா சொல்றாரு, அதனாலதான் நைவேத்தியம் அவர்களுக்கு, பிரசாதம் நமக்கு என்று சொல்வார். ஆனா குருமூர்த்தி அவர்கள் சொல்வார், எப்படி நைவேத்தியமாகவும் பிரசாதமாகவும் இருந்து பெண்கள் இந்த நாட்டை பொருளாதாரத்தில் பண்பாட்டில் காப்பாற்றிக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள் என்பதை பற்றி மிக அற்புதமாக விளக்குவார்கள். I know personally about Gurumurthy ji and what is the level of his respect level to women is something commendable. So you have thrown more light on this subject, sir. Sir, I want to bring to your notice that SASTRA University has introduced a syllabus, open elective syllabus, as life and message of Swami Vivekananda. We have in our campus, there are 180 students who thoroughly know the Chicago speech of Swami Vivekananda. Out of humility, many of them might not be in this hall. Out of humility, some of them may not raise their hands. So SASTRA is the first university in the whole of India which has introduced Swami Vivekananda in their curriculum, in their syllabus, and it has been appreciated by many quarters. So now the intellectuals, they are loaded with many informations. The Gurumurthy ji's contribution to intellectuals is the perception clarity that he gives to us. It's something tremendous and something phenomenal. I want to thank Shri Gurumurthy ji on behalf of SASTRA University and our management. Let us give him a big hand as our thanks, as a token of respect. So I want to thank the SASTRA management, our Vice Chancellor, particularly Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam, who is every year, he could bring Gurumurthy ji to our campus. Without Gurumurthy ji's program or his talk, there is no SASTRA program anywhere else, even in Delhi or in Chennai. Gurumurthy ji always speaks for SASTRA. So I thank Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam, I thank Registrar, I thank everyone present here. Thank you all. Desiya Geetam. जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल वंगा विंध हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलति तरंगा तब सुबना में जाहे दब सुब आशीष माहे जागे दब जय दादा जनगण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे